No, I got it, man. All right. Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Node.js meetup. Out of curiosity, how many people is their first time here? All right, a couple. Welcome, welcome. We do this every month on the third Thursday of the month. And so before we begin, I want to sort of thank our sponsors for the space we have and the drinks. We could thank Code Talent. They're a talent agency. They also rarely have anybody here to represent themselves, but we are super happy that they give us this space. Now we also have wonderful pizza here, and that is thanks to Google. So they've been doing a lot to sort of help out smaller meetups throughout the country and trying to spread the word of open source and working with code. Exactly, right? All right, so before we would begin, does anybody have any announcements? Yeah, you could stand up.
Hello, everybody. My name's Michael. Tommy and I work for Zoom. We are hiring either a mobile SDK developer advocate on our platform team with us, or a desktop, either PC or Mac SDK experience. If you want to help other people build cool things with the greatest video platform, let us know.
My name's Jason Spiller. We do a meetup here the first Thursday of every month. It's range front end, so we primarily deal with vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript, pretty much everything front end except for the major frameworks. We leave those to the experts. But we just happen to be doing a series on the major frameworks and looking for somebody to do an intro to Angular. So if anyone's an Angular dev, intro to Angular talk. It's 3 weeks away. We had a GDE actually pull out at the last minute due to scheduling conflicts, but if you're interested at all, sounds good. Anybody else, just in case we're learning you need lots of backups when it comes to speakers. So, thank you.
All right, and one final thing is I am streaming this meetup to Twitch TV, which also means that I'm going to have an archive of this talk up on YouTube. I'll put a link to it in the meetup, what is it, the little chat log? The comment section. Yeah, that's all I've got there. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker tonight. It's Roberto Ortega. I worked with him actually at Galvanize. He's, I think, the only instructor who went all the way from being a student to being a lead instructor throughout his stay there, and now he's a senior team lead?
Something like that, yeah, a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. All right, well, you're going to be talking about microservices, so I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Brooks. All right. So yeah, let's talk about front-end microservices. You might know about microservices and all that stuff, but first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Roberto. I go by Berto. I am a principal software engineer at C-SPAN. C-SPAN is a really cool company. It's a global company we own and lease ships, like container ships around the world. We have offices in Mumbai, Hong Kong, Vancouver, and here in Denver. It's a really cool opportunity, honestly, for us here in Denver, because we're like this cool startup team for this large company. So it's like really like nice, big funding for us little here, making stuff. And what that allows us is for us to kind of have some freedom on what we do. So one of the things is like we get to really anchor what we want to do with technology. So that's where front-end microservices come in. And before I keep going, I want to give a shout out to Alex because he's sort of in our team. He's sort of the guy. He's very active on Twitter in the community, and like he's He's sort of like presenting to us this knowledge that's around, and like really brings it to us, and like we're like, oh, that's cool, that's happening. I don't even have to check Twitter or anything like that. That's his job. Like it's amazing. So one of the things he like brought to us was microservices. So that's what I want to talk about. So hopefully by the end of it, you should be able to summarize what's bad about having a really large front-end application. Like what is really the downside of it? And then how can microservices kind of help with that? So like having front-end micro apps, I would like for you to like define really what that is and how that works. That is really like, I really want this to be a conversation, kind of like an opening piece of what is happening. I think it's happening in a lot of places, but people are not really talking about it, or they're just kind of beginning to. So that's really the goal. And then, you know, I'll really like hype it up, and hopefully like I'll sell it on it, but like I really also want to highlight identify some of the challenges. So that's what I'm here about. So it's not really in depth. I'm really gonna try to do like 10 to 15 minutes. So here we go. You guys ready for it? I'm just gonna let it on you. You know, this is happening. There's gonna be tons of knowledge. Just hold your breath. It's gonna happen. No, I'm kidding. No. This is like I said. This is gonna be a conversation. So let's chat. Let's really talk about it. So you have a front application. Hopefully you're web developers. Maybe not. But what could you see? And this is like opening up to anybody who wants to shout out. What are some of the downsides of having like a large front end application? Compile times. What else? Yeah.
State management.
State management. What else?
Big code base.
Big code base, right? So yeah, like, man, like state management, when you start having like a big, say if you're using React, a big Redux store, whoa, like so many actions, so many like reducers just, and like you combine them all, whoa. Yeah, compile times, all these things, you know, when you have a large application, having a lot of people collaborate on it, it's difficult. You have like this one thing that is running, and God hopes it just stays running, right? And for C-SPAN, we were building this application that it's supporting a lot of the parts of the business. We like for the reporting team, we have the commercial team and the budget team. So we're building this application that is helping everybody in many different cases. So we're building this large monolith application that is, you know, displaying. So again, we're like container shipment, so we have a lot of data about ships around the world. There's a lot of like illustration, like graphs and tables. There's a lot of things happening. Very large application, and I dare say, towards the end of like we're building this app at the time, it was down to like transpiling to like 20 seconds. That means like we made a change in our code in the React application. We save. It was transpiling for like 15 seconds, and then the browser will refresh for like 5 more seconds in order to see a change in what's happening. That was terrible. Like, so at that point, when we had some sort of, you know, like time allowed for us to kind of take a look at what we were building, and Alex suggested microservices, I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm in. Let's do this. I was like, this is what will save us. So I just like took it in and like let's build it. So how exactly do you go about breaking your large front-end application into smaller microservices? So the concept of microservices has been around for a while. You might know in the backend, it's very common in the backend to have this independently running like single purpose applications. You know, they can be different languages. In the backend, you have services of like, could be like a Node service or a Python like application, right? It doesn't really matter because it's behind the scenes, and the front end can talk to it kind of separately. Microservices, right? We're kind of aware of it. Why don't we do that for the front end? And how would we do that for the front end, right? So that's kind of what I want to explore, and like we thought this would be a great solution for us. So microservices. This is a kind of going the web and looking like, hey, how do people do this? Like, what exactly is going on? You know, you could have, with microservice application, you could have an application that simply just renders your app. That's cool. But then you navigate to another page, and then you have your app, but then it also has other applications in it. So you could break up your logic. You can identify parts of your application that can run independently. So here's one where you have this shopping cart, or you have this commerce site where you have products, and you can click to buy, and you have like your shopping carts or related products, whatever it is. And they highlight here how each one of this application could be built with different technologies. And that's actually one of the pieces, like on a plus size, but it doesn't have to be. In our case, a lot of our stuff is all built in React, so it would be React. But the cool thing is that you're developing separately in their micro apps in that way. So very cool. Here's an example. So let's try to break it down and really like distill like what it is to do, like how you would do this. So we have a monolith application. So kind of going with that example that we just saw. So you have this monolith application, you have products, cart, checkout. This is all the same application, same code base, everything all together. Right? And before I keep going, again, shout out to Alex for doing this designs. It was great. Like I was like, oh, I'm doing this presentation, and he was just like, oh my God, here, just like, I got all these things for you. I was like so excited. He's so passionate about it, and I was like, okay, thank you so much. So, but yeah, so he drew all this, and it's kind of like really representing what's happening. So you have a UI, and kind of breaking it down, you have the front end code, and you have this backend services. Right? Each one, so like the checkout talks to the checkout server that you have, that talks to the checkout database and kind of handles it all separately. Why don't we do that for the front end, right? So we could imagine how we could do that in this way. Now we have independent applications. You can build these things, you can compile them, you can run them separately. All the logic is there. It can talk to the server, it can run on its own, but at some point, you can build it all together and put it all in one place. That's cool, right? So how do you do that? How do you build these independent applications, build them, and put them all in one place? That's kind of like the third step. So how would you put it together? How would you like stitch it all into one place? So, I mean, it gets complicated. We're talking about state, right? How do you manage state with a large application now that you broke it up? How does that even work? Here's the diagram. I also found it on the web. Web's great. We have, here's an example. So Microservices 8, this is talking about the servers, they talk to the database, kind of things like that. Here's the micro front-end app. So I really want to highlight, if you are going to do this for your application, spend some time and really, really think about how you can break up your front end. Is this a piece really independent? Can this run on its own? Awesome. So when you break them up, you really want to think this is a solid piece. This is all, it's self-containing. Once you have them all, for our application in C-SPAN, we are hosting them on S3. Like this is an application, so we build them, we put them on S3, they're cool, good to go, they're there. Awesome. We have them there, but we need a way to put them all together and give it to the client all together in one piece. And that's the stitching layer. That is the secret. That is like the biggest thing, like people are not talking about what is happening. But that magical part, stitching layer, is the one that takes it all the application. For us, it really makes like HTTP requests to S3, grabs them, and then puts them to the user, builds the application. And that's kind of what we're doing. So that stitching layer is usually referred to as the orchestrator. This orchestrator part, this magical thing that puts everything together and runs the show. It's usually a server, not a big deal. For us, just a node server. When you run a node server, it requests the micro apps, like I said, just HTTP request, hey, oh, dude's trying to go to this page. All right, let me get this micro app, here you go, and it serves them together. And that's it. And you can see this example right here. This is using kind of like web components to put them together. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You just throw them in there and they'll do their thing, you know, kind of like spas are really good about just taking a div and just blowing up, right? So you have this sort of idea of, you have a server that gets the logic, gets the HTML, the JavaScript, CSS from the micro apps, and puts them all together. And that's what's happening in that page. Now, it gets complicated, of course. The orchestrator can do many things. It can handle authentication. In our case, it's kind of doing some of that. You know, some of like safety, you know, like, hey, are you sure you can see this? Okay, maybe not. That sort of thing. It can also handle state management. I've seen it where people have set up for communication. So if you have a micro app that wants to talk to the other one, it makes a request to the server. That's the orchestrator. So, but that doesn't have to be. Like if you really want to start doing this, don't complicate it too much. Just really have something that's requesting and send them together. So here's like some examples at C-SPAN. This is the kind of stuff that we're building. We're building a lot of like charts and information and tools. But you would look at this and you'd be like, cool, it's an application. I've seen websites and stuff like that. You would not know that this is multiple micro apps working together to display it. And when you send them, you have to do some CSS work to line them up and put them here and there and kind of like, you know, do that stuff. But yeah, they're like this sidebar communicates to this main bar. So when you click it, or like maybe you collapse it, this grows, and they have a way to be able to. They're in the same space, but they have a way to communicate and all that stuff. Yeah, John.
Are the micro apps? Do the micro apps include the HTML and CSS, or is it just the JavaScript part?
Yes, they include the HTML and CSS. Yeah, exactly how you would build it. So it has everything that it needs all together. In this sort of example, where like this right here, in this example, everything below custom summary, this is a micro app that we have. You can run it separately. It looks weird, right? It doesn't look like the full app, but it can run it separately. It functions just as well as everything else because it has its CSS, it has its JavaScript logic, and it has the HTML to support it.
So how do you coordinate the work of the developers such that the HTML, CSS from one doesn't make something weird happen in another?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. And then really, I am going to just jump into this. So if after this I don't cover it, like please ask again or like really specify it. So I really want to go talking about like the challenges that you face doing oh yeah, Game of Thrones spoiler, sorry. The challenge that you get from doing this, right? Because yeah, you get like, wait, how do you actually do all this? Like the CSS, how would you share that, right? Like you wouldn't want like a developer like trying to do all these things. So for communication, that's one of the key parts. You have this single app, no matter how good you do it, you still need something to communicate between them. That's just gonna happen. So the best thing I found, custom events. It really does solve the problem. They both share the same environment. You have this micro app, like they all share the same environment, which is the window, right, in the browser. So actually, when we were prototyping this, well, I really just threw functions in the window, and they called each other. Like that works. Like you can just do that. A nicer way is to do custom events. So you can create. I love this example. MDN is just cat. Love it. So you can just create a cat event that just cat things, and a micro app can just say like, hey, listen for cat, because when cat comes, you're gonna do that. And that's really what you have to do. So now a micro app can say like, hey, I want this micro app to do something. I'm gonna trigger cat event, and the other one's like, oh, cat's happening. I'm gonna do this. And that's a way to communicate between them. Right? Very simple, and it works. Like I said, there's already more complicated things you can do with have an orchestrator. You can do HTTP to communicate between them, but this is solid. Another challenge you might find is like, okay, but now you have like shared logic between the micro apps and like state. How do you handle state? I really want to like just cut the state one out of the bat. Like no shared state. Like the whole idea is like this micro apps should be self-contained, independent applications. If you do want state to be shared, maybe like I said, you can try to think creatively. They share the window space. Could you share the state in the window, or could you share with the orchestrator? That kind of. But honestly, I think you should be building without trying to share the state between them. And then for logic and things like that, NPM modules. I have here like a bunch of micro apps and like the sea of NPM modules that at CSPAN we've been creating a lot of modules to kind of share this logic so we don't replicate it on like things like, oh, you need to do like authentication. You know, they're all gonna do the same sort of process. Let's create an NPM module in the registry to like be able to like import it in. And boom, that's it. You have it across all of them. I'm kind of excited about the GitHub. Talking about registry, we might switch to GitHub NPM modules, like throw them in there in their registry. But that's another challenge and kind of to think about. The last one I want to talk about is the development process. You have a lot of moving pieces. You have a lot of applications kind of stitched together. So I have this guy kind of juggling, and sometimes it feels like that. You're juggling different environments. I look at my terminal, it has like 5 tabs open, right? Because you have like one environment here, another one here, and you gotta make sure it's running. And it always takes a second, like, okay, this is a bug here. What's happening? You know, like what is this? And with like different modules, it's not like a large application where you can like trace the files. It's happening in different places. So that's also something you have to face. But honestly, all these challenges, they're not that bad compared to having a large monolith. Like really, the benefits really shine through. Like the build process, like being able to have like feature teams in different parts. It really is, in a simple terms, just scalable. Having micro apps is just works. So like you can just go to town on one micro app and make it as complicated as you want. It's its own thing, and you can scale all of them. So that's really nice. So that is it's a really brief introduction. And then I'm sorry if I didn't get too technical and really like start writing code. Yeah,
Do you use a Flux library?
Flux.
You use Redux?
Yeah.
Do you set up multiple Redux stores somehow, or do you manually just say this is app 1, app 2 inside the Redux store?
Beautiful. So the Redux dev tools is really nice that allows you to define them separately. So yeah, when we're kind of working on it, you can select, hey, what Redux store like do I want to see this current state of? So yeah, like I said, they're very self-contained. So yeah, each one kind of runs its own Redux, and you can see the state of each one as it goes. So there is some duplication of data. This is kind of like, can't get away with it that easy. We do have, for example, the user information. It is duplicated in the Redux stores because like we want, so like one micro app grabs the user and it has it stored, and then the other one wants to run, it grabs the user and has that stored kind of separately. So we have yet to run into any kind of sync issues, but it could kind of potentially happen. So that's the sort of things to be aware of.
Do you have data that needs to be, the changing data that needs to be synced across user probably doesn't change?
No, it doesn't change. Yeah, you're logged in, right?
But other things potentially could change.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the need to duplicate data across your microservices?
So far, we've come across like a scenario, but we're like, you know, this is kind of working. We've like had some architecture like, wow, we should have like an arbiter that kind of controls the state of the application. But like, honestly, that's we haven't run into a problem yet. We can kind of say, hey, this could happen, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, that always happens when we think there's no single source of truth. So what could happen if potentially, you know, something comes across? Yeah.
I'm curious what you are considering when for CSS, both for like global styles and the potential for conflicts between like 3 different conventions, or even like if you're doing them in some sort of like Webpack config with 3 different conventions, or potentially different conventions going into that.
Yeah. So I want to say, just kind of highlight the beauty of micro apps. You could have different conventions for each one because they're kind of like very independent. For us, the first thing we did is create kind of like our own bootstrap. We created our own pattern library for our application, so that way we create it and we can import it to each one. That would have the components and the logic, everything that can be shared. So the CSS, like we do have some tweaks and stuff for each one independently, but they all share this major style guide coming from one source, and that's an Ibm module that we built that has all the styles and everything. So yeah, that's one of the first things we started like, we do want to share, like we want it to be cohesive. We want it to look the same. So we created a pattern library that we can share across. Great question. Awesome. Cool. Great questions. So yeah, this is kind of like what I had, but I really want this to be a conversation. So like, if after this you're still like, what is microservice? I don't know. Like, I really think, please come talk to us. Come talk to Alex. We're really passionate about this. We love it. We would love to like kind of really dive down into it. So again, the goal is to like be able to summarize like large front application. It can be bad. Usually is bad. Microservices is great. Don't shy away from it. I've seen people like be like, oh no, I tried it. It doesn't work. It's hard. Like, but you're probably not doing it right. You have to like really explore and like kind of like really get the concept of how it works. And I would love to help. Like, this is something that you know, the community needs to do more. Talk more about this, and like be aware of the challenges. Can your company afford to do this? You know, there are some like tricky parts of it. So yeah. So please, Alex and I are thinking of doing this like a longer talk, a really deep down, and kind of show some code and kind of break it down. So please, if you have any questions or like what you found interesting, what you didn't find interesting, please come to us, come to me. I would love to talk about it and really, yeah, dive down to the greedy level of it. Thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
Was this a complete rewrite, or did you have the monolith going and start spinning out microservices and sunset the?
Beautiful. It was part of both. So the orchestrator part, like the server, we actually used Razzle for it. So we're server-side rendering application. That one's complete from scratch. We had to build that. The micro apps, we took some of the code and we just strip out things like, you're not part of it, 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 and like did that like 3 times. So it was a lot of like, wow, what do they share? So it is kind of like you need to be invested in this. It does take time. You need to know like wow, what is being shared and whatnot. So yeah,
Sounds fun.
it was. Other questions? Thoughts? Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Barry.